This budget includes no tax increase above the 99 cents. There's also not a reassessment. That reflects the discussion that we had with the board during the 5-year financial planning process. One of the reasons we do that is to get a sense of where you think we should be going in the year ahead. There is a significant reallocation of budget savings in this budget to strategic priorities, and I think the most important example of that, as we've spoken to you all about recently, is also something that's going on in the school system. Because of rebidding our health insurance and doing some things together, we've been able to save some money. Our claims are down on both sides of the street, and we have both proposed to reallocate some of that savings built into the employer share towards doing some things in the budget. And what we have done is dedicated all of those savings to implementing our market pay study, which we are just about to complete and are going to discuss with you in April. But that's an example of a significant amount of savings to the tune of about $850,000 that's been able to move over to fund what is almost a $2 million proposed expense in this budget to implement some of our market pay study. You all heard the sheriff talk to you just last few weeks ago about his difficulty hiring deputies and how far behind salaries are. We have the data now to verify that. We're proposing a 2-year phase-in of this market study. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But again, significant example of that reallocation.
Ms. Maurer.
Yes. And on the market pay study implementation, is that primarily our public safety personnel, or is that a mix?
That is across the board, the entire county workforce on local government side.
When we, and it's going to be important for me, when we split this out and go into a greater, deeper dive, I'd like to know the proportion that is for our frontline personnel, such as those in social services, those in, our public safety. That would be an interesting delineation for me. Not right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll talk a little bit more about that study in a minute, but we will have all the data for you and talk about what areas are the most significant in terms of progress we need to make. And I'll say that public safety is one of those areas. The other highlights of the budget, the general fund budget is up 3.3%, but our operating expenses are only up 2.6%. The difference is some money that we've been setting aside for the court project, which this year is the beginning of that. So we're using some fund balance to get that started that we've been setting aside for several years. Property tax revenue is up 2.3%. You can see consumption taxes continue to be strong. They're not a huge part of our budget, but there's some good news there in terms of sales tax and so forth. New construction is estimated at 1% growth. The assessed value of a home right now in the county on average is $301,000, and the average tax bill is about $2,900. You can see the major budget drivers from the highest to the lowest. What has always been the case is the largest increase is going to the school system to support their needs, and we'll talk about those in detail. There's the cost of the market pay study implementation and a 2.5% salary increase, which is also proposed in this budget across the board. Public safety, as usual, is getting the other largest share of the increases in this budget, and we'll talk about that as well. I do want to point out that the market study is not only for staff, but this year I have proposed a change in the board salary based upon survey data of other localities like us, where you stand compared to them. So we will talk about that as well during the budget process. Some funding has been set aside to be consistent on that as well. Public safety, we have added 3 fire rescue technicians, firefighters, to work across the system. They will basically allow us to work less overtime by having some staff to fill in when folks are on comp time or annual leave and so forth. Our staffing model hasn't quite caught up with all of those extra things that are needed, so this is going to help get us there. And our sheriff didn't come forward this year asking for a bunch of new deputies. He said, my problem is getting new deputies in the building and getting them trained. So we have made a big effort in this budget to add 2.5 staff, if you will, to focus on that recruitment process so that he's able to better fill the vacancies that he has. I think if we added deputies at this point without this help, we probably wouldn't fill them in the year ahead. So this is where the sheriff, I think, in a more strategic approach is asked to be done this year ahead, and we've funded those positions as requested. The final area, organizational excellence, you see four pretty major boxes here, pretty major initiatives in place. I've talked about the 2.5 cent salary increase, and we've talked a little about the market pay study. Those are being implemented really to keep our salaries up and also to catch up on our salaries from being behind the market. We have proposed, as I mentioned, a 2-year phase-in of the market study. We're going to have a discussion at the April 2nd work session more about this whole study and some of the data that Ms. Maurer had mentioned needing to see more about. Two other major initiatives here under your strategic plan for organizational excellence. The establishment of the Central Procurement Office, and that new operation requires some people to make it happen. And I think we told you all about that over the last couple months. And these are positions that are necessary to move that forward. I will say that the purchasing card administrator, we think that we will generate more than enough savings to offset the cost of that position, so we consider it to be revenue neutral. We've talked a lot about some of the legal review that's needed in our procurement operation to move it up to the place it needs to be, and that's having a pretty significant impact on our county attorney's office, so we have proposed a change there as well. I will mention to you, though, that these are not positions that are all in the general fund. Utilities and schools generate a lot of the activity, and so they're contributing towards offsetting the cost of these positions in total. A couple other things on service quality. One professional development position and an increased training support for our staff, and there is one project manager position being proposed, both to keep the strategic plan focused and moving, but more importantly, any organizational projects that are cross-departmental that need the kind of expertise that project management skills are going to bring to it. This is in direct response to one of your strategic goals under organizational excellence. On the study itself, I'll just say to you just very briefly on the market study, we found that we are 8 to 9% behind the market. And the areas that are the furthest behind the market, fire rescue, landfill, public works, and our parks and recreation and community facilities staff. The departments with the largest percentage of staff below the market, which means there'll be a lot of money needed to go there, fire rescue, the sheriff, and our landfill in terms of big numbers. The deputies and the firefighters in particular and public safety are folks we're going to have to pay attention to early, I think, in this process because of the training requirements and the dollars to replace folks because of training, but also because there's such a large number.
Ms. Maurer.
So one of the things that I want to make clear to the sheriff's deputies, because I'm certain every member of this board has received some valid concerns about the pay compression. Part of this market study is dealing with some of the pay compression issues, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That has to do with how we implement the market study. So just in a very general kind of way, I think about the staff behind me going, oh my gosh, what's he going to say on some of these things like engineers and things like that. But we will look at all of our grades. We have 15 grades now. We probably need to have 23 or 25. That means that folks will have to get moved into a grade at the minimum, and then we'll have to give them credit for years of experience and position, which will move them up in the grade, therefore eliminating some of these compression issues. So how we implement it is designed to get at both issues. Overall, administrative positions, administrative assistants across the entire organization are the group that's the furthest behind the market. So it isn't just public safety folks. There are some things across the board that we need to adjust.